have the deposit. She was 4 or 5 steps.
All right, it's 6:01. Call the Dalton Township Planning Commission meeting order for November 29th, 2022. First, we will do roll call. And Dave, I am here. Jesse is excused. Nick? Here. Lee? Here. John? Here. Casey? Here. And Todd? Here. Do we have anything to add to the agenda for tonight? No. Okay.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Before we pass, we have the minutes from October 25th, 2022. Motion to approve.
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we now are up to public comment. You may have up to 3 minutes to state your case or speak on your behalf, sing a song, whatever you would like to do. So we will go ahead and open that up at 6:03. It can't be our good looks that brought everybody here.
I imagine, do you want to clarify, is this about a specific
This
thing
is just
that
general, yeah, I'm sorry. You're good.
praise us about how
Yep.
good of a job we're doing at the first time? Specific things will come later.
Yes, the specificity. Good word. Go ahead, seeing there's no one stepping forward, we'll close that at 6:04. And then tonight we do have some items for public hearing. The first is SU 22-08 and SPR 22-07 at 2550 East Michelinda Road, Essential Services Building for DTE. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at 6:04. And if you would like to start, I'd just first give us name and you can get all that information for Steve.
Yes, that's good. I won't sing a song. Bore you guys with that. But my name is Jonathan Wilson. I'm a Regional Corporate and Government Affairs Manager with DTE Energy. I'm here tonight with my colleagues from DTE, Sim Laginas, Kelly Yonker, and Jason Hall from the Site Audit Group, who is our lead engineer on the project. As you all know, Muskegon County is growing in population, and we need infrastructure to support the growth that is happening in the region. So we have a gate station on Michelinda Road that we're looking to expand the capacity on. Tonight we're asking for a special land use permit and site plan approval from the Planning Commission. We have the experts here who can answer any questions you have about the project, but we plan on completing engineering and design work in 2023, and construction will begin in 2024. You want to go over the
I think
closed plan?
Kelly can talk to the reason for the expansion.
So what we're looking at doing at our North Muskegon Gate Station, the supplies, we've got upwards of about 11,000, I'll say meters that are connected to this system. With that, that's just a meter count, it's not an actual population count. Supply the northern Muskegon area, the river there, then up to about Whitehall, Montague here, just a little bit south of that. And then from where the gate station's at, we also have a pipeline that goes northeast up towards Fremont and Hesperia, up towards Reed City, and supplies a lot of that pipeline up that, or customers up that way as well. And what we've been experiencing in the last few years, our regulation facility that's there at the gate station, it's starting to reach capacity at this point. We do have we have a primary run and a standby run that's there. And what we're experiencing is the primary run is maxed out, it's wide open, and then things are kicking over to the standby run. And when our gate stations are reaching that point, that's when we start looking at reevaluating the capacity of the station, figure out what we got to do to get more capacity out to the system for that. So that's the premise of why we want to look at expanding this, is allow for more capacity for North Muskegon Gate Station.
Yep, so our graphic here on the right is basically our topo survey document that was done before SIDAC group got the project to go forth with the design and engineering. So that was part of the land purchase that was almost final this meeting here. Hopefully approval is the last step of that to purchase the land. This small, I assume everybody has graphics up there on the board.
Right.
The small rectangle here is the existing station that's up along the railroad right away, on the north side of the railroad and north side of Mission River Road. Right now contains I believe it's a heater, regulator building, a small little communications building, flash shaft, and obviously some being valves and such, where you'll see minor piping with valve pads and stuff above grade. The larger portion to the northwest is what DTE had determined they wanted to purchase from this landowner that owns, I don't know how many acres, but it's Tree-O Inc. So I assume it's a tree farm of some sort. There's an existing DTE pipeline running northwest, southeast right here. And that would be our northern boundary for the interstation. And it's a 2-acre purchase, I think it's a little bit, the hit units runs out to 2 acres. In addition to the acres, I'm not sure what it is of the existing station, so it's an additional 2-acre purchase. So that's the plan for the property. The graphic over here on the right is kind of just a detailed the site plan for the plan right now as we're designing and developing that. You guys don't see this, but I'll share it to you after I describe it to the public audience out here. So what we're looking for is we don't know the size of the building. It may or may not be this size or a little smaller. This is the regular building. Generally, they're 10 to 12 feet tall to the eave. Steel tube internal supports with roofing inside and then steel sheathing on the outside. 10 by 10 communication building. This is a little bit smaller than a 10 by 10, but it's same construction. Again, it's steel tube frame on the inside, steel sheathing on the outside. But that, because of how it's electronics, will have insulation panels on the inside and an HVAC unit to regulate the inside. On the right is what our heaters look like. Those are called indirect, what I call bath heaters. It's basically a big vessel filled with glycol, and then a burner tube from the backside runs through, sometimes 2 of them. You don't know when there's 2 of them, because there'll be 2 exhaust stacks. And then the natural gas comes in through 1 manifold, runs through a bunch of pipes inside continuously, and comes out the other manifold out. The bottom right is what we call the filter separator. That's a smaller one, and we're not sure the size of what this project's going to be at. We're just at specification writing phase right now. But that's a similar concept of what a filter separator will look like. And then when that bottom tank that holds the condensate and everything that gets dropped out of the gas gets full, it runs out into a tank. This is a 500-gallon tank from us, the project that belonged to, and that's what we're initially planning for at this site as well. So those are the main equipment of the project. That's if you wanted to see some more detail, that's what the site plan will show here. We are not using the entire 2 acres. I believe estimated to be probably more like 3/4 of an acre, maybe. Not quite a whole acre of the actual station and fenced in area here. The rest will be used for stormwater retention, which we're just now starting that design, and that's a county requirement. Anytime you improve a site, you gotta take care of the stormwater so you don't inundate the drains and neighbors. The nearest property line, I believe it is this one. But I believe that it is also vacant. I'm not quite 100% sure, and that the next house is down a little bit more ways. I don't have any graphics really show that, but and then again, the reason we're here is for a special land use permit because the property that this is the purchase for the property is zoned residential. So in order to get this essential service going. Is a special land use permit need to be applied for. And the board approved that. I'll go ahead and flip this around for you guys.
Underneath that, contact water.
Typically, what we're trying to plan for right now is a retention pond. So it's actual natural permeability into the ground. So we've already done a test out there for the county requirements to determine the permeability of the ground because it's mostly sand up here. So, and it is good permeability. The only thing that we're looking at right now in order to design this is the water table's a little high than what we would like. So the idea is to provide freeboard above the high water line so that you've got room for your water to go somewhere into the ground. So that's, like I said, we're in the initial stages of that. We have a Muskegon office here downtown that holds our civil engineers that do those type of land development engineering design. So the idea is that the fenced in area will be all stone. That's typical for DT gas facilities, and I think electric facilities too. And that will sheet flow to the pond without any pipes or anything like that.
Now the vent on the glycol separator, is that actually venting natural gas into
No.
the air?
No, the separator doesn't have any vents. The only thing, well, I think that has a relief valve. I think anything when they have these high pressure vessels, they'll have a relief valve. So in case of emergency or something over pressurizes, then they've got, or if they even get hot, fire safe valve. The heater, that big exhaust stack that you saw is just a burner stack. So it's actually the burner exhaust. So
There's a
that's,
flame inside.
yeah, it's natural, yeah, it's because obviously these are natural gas facilities. The pilot and the burner uses the natural gas that it's actually heating, it uses it because DT owns it.
So what's coming out of that exhaust stack would be like what's coming out of your furnace? The burn fumes.
Yes.
I don't want, I'm not trying to beat you up or anything.
Yep.
Is there then a fire suppression system connected to that with there being a flame at a gas facility?
They're automatic shutoffs built into the fuel gas for the heater. And then some of the valves on site will be automatic and controlled. And then we'll have overpressure protection, which is a government standard. So, you know, everything will be designed to the current standards. And then DT takes it a step further with some of their standards. Goes a little stricter.
One last question. What is the increase in throughput? What are we going from and what are we going to projected?
So right now, out of our North Muskegon Gauge Station, we're flow on a peak winter day when it's really, really cold out. Feeding those 11,000 plus meters, we're upwards around 600,000 cubic feet per hour. And what we're designing this for is upwards of 2 million cubic feet per hour. So we're putting a lot of expansion in, so we designed it once, built it once, and we got plenty of capacity for a while.
That's huge.
Yes.
So it's tripling the output. So piping is increasing in size drastically.
Yeah, we're setting the station up with larger outlets. So that way we need to build a bigger pipeline infrastructure coming out from the station. We've got that set up to feed out to the system.
But if you triple the flow, you don't triple the size of the pipe, right? Let's get too technical, maybe. The pipe diameter is a square. It's squared, right? So a 4-inch pipe is 16. A 6-inch pipe is 36. So all of a sudden you've taken that 6-inch pipe, so 36 to 16. You've about doubled it when you've gone from 4 to 6 inches. So you're not going to see huge, enormous pipes.
Yeah, this is, I wouldn't say phase because this is the only part that's really thought about right now is being built, but they've got forethought into what then comes down, like you said, additional pipelines, to feed to other smaller stations and stuff like that, then to get to the customers. But right now for this project, we're tapping the 12-inch that's existing on the northwest, southeast angle up there, perpendicular to the railroad. And then outletting to the 8-inch that's in the south side of Michelin Road. So
You're gonna tie into the existing 8-inch.
correct. Yes. Yeah, right now the existing station feeds that 8-inch main that actually comes out of the station, parallel to the railroad right away. So we're gonna also backfeed that in the existing station, and then we're gonna cross the street and tie into the south side with a new tap. It is, but in the station. So it's kind of confusing how it's coming up along from the north along the railroad. And then it's this existing regulator station. And so I believe we need to backfeed the existing pipeline from the north.
You go down Katy.
Distribution.
There's a transmission main that was tapped into, and so out of the existing station, we've got an 8-inch 300-pound feed that goes north up towards Beach City, that goes cross country, doesn't follow any roads. And then we also have a 8-inch 150-pound line that goes down Mission Lynn into the west, and then it sneaks its way down towards North Muskegon area.
There's an 8-inch main.
Yeah.
Goes right on the south side of Michelin, down Katy.
Yes.
And a 4-inch line as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's a low pressure line. 60 pounds of it.
And you're gonna need to increase that infrastructure too as well.
Eventually, yes. Yeah. So we're designing the station to have the capacity, and then as more of that capacity starts coming out of the system, we'll probably eventually end up either replacing that 8-inch line or paralleling that 8-inch line with another line. So the new station, we're designing it with a 12-inch outlet to tie back to the existing 8-inch outlet for the 150. Then we're also designing it with another 12-inch 300-pound pressure outlet for future connection if we ever wanted to do that. Then we're also the 300-pound line that goes cross country northeast. We're setting that up with a future, coming off the transmission line, setting that up with a future 12-inch pipeline that'll replace that line. That'll be at a transmission pressures upwards of, I think that line runs from like 600, 700 pounds of pressure. So we're setting up for the future expansion of this location.
I'm just concerned being surrounded by that many high pressure line. And you got an 8-inch right behind my house, now you got a 8-inch right in front of it, you're talking increase in.
Yep.
My property values could probably
And we do,
change a little
when
bit.
we do all our maintenance work, we're every 3 years we come out and do the leak surveys of the pipelines itself. And at these stations themselves, they have to do an annual inspections out there and check it for leaks and all that stuff too. So our maintenance program, we're required to do that by law, but we do it also to ensure that the safety of the public, make sure there's no issues or concerns with it.
If the existing stations.
Yes, and what we're planning to do, the property, it's another one, yeah. So everything will be torn out except for, I think we might have some, if I remember correctly, there's gonna be a little bit sticking above ground. I think
Just the new piping.
yeah.
Yep.
And then we're gonna leave that lot empty for now. And what I mentioned about that the new transmission line running in the 7 pounds of pressure going northeast out of there. When we install that new transmission line, we get to designing it. One of the things we have to do is we're required to smart pig it once every 7 years to ensure the integrity of it. And one of the things we do is we have to set up these pig traps to capture and launch the smart pigs. So we're looking at utilizing that empty lot for a future smart pig launcher and receiver at that location. So at some point in time, it may get filled back up with that trap assembly, pig trap assembly. That at this point, that will be years out.
So this is obviously different than storage, but I have to ask, is there an impact zone or like a blast zone associated to a station like this?
We do this goes back to the PIR, stuff like that. The transmission line, I don't remember off this transmission line what that PIR zone is. But yeah, we do crunch numbers for that stuff. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. Usually, I think that's 660 feet.
Well, it's the 660 feet is if you're looking at the class location.
Right.
But for this, the pressures that we're running out of the station currently, these are all distribution. Correct. So they're operating at what's called less than 20% of the specified minimum yield strength of the pipe. So it's at 20% of its maximum value that it can hold. So it's 5 times as strong as it needs to be. And we do that with our distribution systems to keep them safe like that.
665 feet. What's the limitations that can go within that area? As property owners, are we allowed to build within that or fall within that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or what limitations, I guess, is placed upon us?
No,
Is that radius or diameter?
It's viewed more of like a diameter. Like I said, for this particular, like the pressures we're at, I did done the calculation, I'm moving numbers first for
It's-
PIR, but
it's gonna be-
pressures are gonna be small.
Right, this is probably less than 100 feet.
Yeah, the 660 you mentioned is more what they use for pipelines to determine how strong to make the pipe. As to how many,
And then those are
how
the
many-
cross-country type
yes,
pipes.
how many residents or how many apartments or malls or high volume people are within that 660 feet, and that determines what the safety factors are in your pipe. And like you said, that's not really relatable to a station.
But again, the pressures that the station is operating at, the diameters of the pipes that are there, it's going to be less than 100 feet.
With the current setup, but
But even with the future.
even with the future, will still be at that same capacity, so even increasing them 3 times isn't gonna affect it.
Because the volume doesn't impact it.
And there's no separator there currently with the flame, with the burner?
Heater. So 2 different pieces of equipment. There's a filter separator, which is not electrically or heat operated or anything. It's basically I wouldn't say gravity, but sometimes they're a swirl, but it's an actual physically separates drops of any condensate or any sludge or dirt that's in the gas. It'll hit that first, and then after that it'll go through the heater. And so right now existing, I believe there's just a heater and not a filter separator. So filter separators are really up to the utility on a case by case, station by station basis of when they want them. They're kind of a fail safe. You're gonna have I wouldn't say high tech, but you're gonna have a more complex station regulation building like this. You want to protect those regulators. So and so that's why you're taking filter separators just in case.
All right, I think to help bring us kind of a good generic thing, we've usually not done it this way, but it was kind of nice to have some informal conversations. What we'll do now is we're going to go to the actual public hearing and you'll have 3 minutes. If you'd like to ask a question, you can certainly use the questions directed to the experts. It will not be us. We are not the experts in this particular capacity. We will leave that to these guys who seem to be able to answer the questions. If you have anything specific for us on the policies or anything like that we have up there, you certainly can do that. But if you'd start with just giving your name and then your address, that helps us. So I'll go ahead and we will open up again the public hearing for anyone who would like to ask any questions at this point. If there's anything that you haven't been able to get an answer on, or if there's anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak.
It's my gas bill, what's now, we don't have my address.
I hope that's not how this works. All right, we don't have any other questions. I will then close the public hearing. The board will have some conversation here as far as looking at this. Thank you, everyone. Okay, everyone has had a chance to kind of hear what is on the table here, what Stephen has given us on our things to consider. The one question I had, it does say that there is that, what was the term on that? The restrictive covenant area. What exactly, I've not come across that prior to this. Even what does that exactly mean? And it said it would be taken care of in the purchase.
Yeah, so I don't know the specific details of what those covenants are. But he's communicated to me that that's they removed as part of the sale.
Okay.
They might be able to speak to that.
If anyone could do that for us, that would help.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get a hold of the actual covenant legal document itself. DT land people, with holidays and stuff, I, for some reason, just haven't been able to get it. But what I did get when I asked our project team about it was the actual document that the landowner will sign to DTU for the purchase to release it. So it's a legal document that'll be submitted. And from my reading and from my experience with legal documents, which isn't very deep, but it looked like that the Trio company that owns the land owns the restrictive covenant, the restrictions, so. And that is what on this top slide or top board here, that hatched pattern. It's very odd. I've never seen anything like it. I can't explain why it's there, what its purpose was. So, but from all the things that I could tell without seeing the actual recorded document for the covenant, it looks like they own it, so they can release it.
Okay, that's it. So it's done through the purchase. At that point, that's nothing that we would be, okay.
The thing was in the brief here is about the fence, talking about in the staff report here.
Yes, they would have to have a variance for a fence taller than 6 feet. Commercial areas, the planning commission can allow for a taller fence, but not in residential, even though it's a non-residential use. Yeah, we could definitely change it instead of making them get a variance.
Add that to our list.
Yep.
That would be a part of an SLU. That would that, not any R1 district. Running behind homes that have a 8-foot fence in their backyard.
Yeah.
Plus 3 straight.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Special land use only, yeah.
It's,
See the Gertz family, that's the next level.
Wouldn't have any questions for BTE or anyone from there, or any?
Very thorough.
Appreciate you had all the boxes checked on the things that we asked for. The thing is, when we're looking at it, it does help to be able to see exactly what you're speaking. It helps us out, so thank you for that.
I think you mentioned earlier you don't have an exact building size. Is there a plus or minus that you're thinking you're gonna fall within?
Station
25 by 25 with a regulated.
right now, so I mean, I can't see it getting any, maybe 25 by 35. 40 maybe, but yeah, not,
Yeah, I wouldn't think
nowhere
it's
near
more than
50,
that.
yeah, nowhere near, probably nowhere.
The building's essentially just to protect the equipment itself. There's no heat or anything in that building.
Didn't know if it was gonna be plus or minus 25 feet each direction and 30 feet in height.
Can we approve a plus or minus, so we don't have to see them again if it changes? Or is that, we would have to come back?
And then the amount
Yeah,
of, the amount
probably
of
could
percentage change.
No, I mean, can we pre-approve their
Oh,
changes?
If
like,
even, yeah,
do that?
should be able to. As a condition, say the regulator building,
Cannot exceed.
yeah,
This,
not exceed this
okay.
dimension.
And there's really nothing as far as setbacks or anything of concern there, as long as they stay within lot coverage, you're fine. We need to include that if we did make the motion, then the plus or minus.
Yes.
Not to exceed a square footage?
Yeah, do the square footage on the dimensions. So
Right, cause I don't
dimension,
want them to come back if it's like, oh, 10 feet.
I think you're a math wit, so.
I know, I was waiting for
No,
me
I
to punch the number.
I mean, you said 25, maybe up to maybe 50, that was just a thing, it's like 1,250 square feet, it's fine.
Okay.
So, yeah, do that.
So not to exceed 150.
Right.
One would like to entertain a motion to approve or? I didn't take enough notes today, sorry. Those are good pictures.
Make a motion to approve SU 22-08 and SPR 22-07 with two caveats. That the regulator building would not to exceed 1,250 square feet, but exact dimensions can be decided by you. And that your fence cannot be over 6 feet unless you seek a variance.
Or changed by the,
Well,
that's a good point.
because if we change it, it won't apply to them,
Yeah.
right? Okay, sorry. Well, if we change it before they, because they're not doing construction for a while, so if we change it before they seek a variance, then they wouldn't have to seek a variance, right?
Yeah, so the condition could be.
Yes, exactly.
And
We can
Either-
approve them, we can
right.
approve them for the variance,
Right.
but you may not need it.
By the planning commission
Okay.
or the variance.
Exactly, okay.
Somebody get all that?
He did.
He's writing, so that's what. Support. We'll take a roll call vote on this. Todd? Yes. Casey?
Yes.
John? Yes. Lee?
Yes.
Nick? Yes. And Dave? Yes. So that moves forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. We're going to. We'll move forward to public hearing for ZC 22-02, the rezone at 3817 Whitehall Road. Actually, first, let me do this. I will close the public hearing. And that's a no. 6:34.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Good.
My name is Alec Vandenbosch. I just recently purchased about 6 months ago, 3817 Whitehall Road. I'm a real estate investor. My case here today is for rezoning classification from C2 zoning to R1 residential single family home. And the reason I'm here today is because I was going to repair the existing structure, the garage that was there. And upon going to do the repairs, I just happened to notice that it was in complete total disrepair and it needed to be torn down and it needed to be rebuilt in order for safety purposes. So what my plan is I just wanted to, I want the existing structure to be the same dimensions as what it was. I would just like to extend the width of the garage by 6 feet to make it from a single stalled garage to a 1.5 stalled garage. So that way, when you go to get in your house and, you know, park your car, you are not banging your doors on the sides and maybe have just a little extra storage space. Also, another thing is that the roof or the garage that was connected there, the original roof was an A-frame like this, and it was connected right into the side of the house. It was a terrible design. Whoever approved that, when that happened, it should have never happened. So my proposition is I just want to make it a single pitched roof that just runs everything right off into the yard. So, and it'll be wood built and it'll be steel roof around it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
So you're saying there's a valley currently due to the way the
There was, I tore it completely down, now it's just completely open, the side of my house right now is completely exposed to the elements. It is a cinder block house, so I'm not really too concerned about that, but I would like to get it built quickly before the snow comes back, so.
Let's have a history in the zoning on this one.
It's been since commercially as long as I could find.
When I initially had come in, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
I was gonna say, when I initially had come in and I had spoke to Steven here, he told me that it did used to be, or it was rezoned at some point to a R1 single family home. But he said that because there was a lapse in the people living there was a lapse of a year or longer. He said that it reverted to the the C2 classification. And he told me that Dalton Township actually doesn't have C2 zoning anymore. So I was very confused as to how it reverted back to that if you guys don't have that zoning anymore, so.
We don't have the mixed use zoning.
Yeah.
That allows for commercial and residential uses in commercial to be established.
And I just want this to just be a single family home. I want it to be someone's forever home, so I put a lot of work into it so far, and I don't want to get hung up with this zoning issue.
Stephen, it's currently zoned R1,
It's currently zoned C2 commercial.
so that needs to be
It's been,
reconciled.
yeah, and it's been
First.
zoned commercially for a while, and I believe that's because it was constructed as a commercial building, but then
Yeah.
that it hasn't been used commercially in a while. Then it was used residentially. I don't know how that was approved, but then that was abandoned recently, and then Alec bought it and wants to bring it back to residential.
I don't know very much history upon the house,
The
so
first order of business then would be to decide how it will be zoned before he spends another dime, right, on it.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here. It's in the master plan, it is dedicated towards R1, low density residential. This would be,
This is one that was residential and reverted back to the C2 because of the lapse in.
I believe it was always zoned C2. It just had a residential use in it.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure how that was approved. It might have been rezoned at one point, and then somebody went through and rezoned it to commercial.
He said the master plan, this is slated as a R1.
Correct.
And it's surrounded by R1. Stephen, did I hear you just say that our most recent master plan has zoned that back to residential?
Yes, it
Oh, okay.
dedicates in the future land use plan.
Okay, so we want to look to, this is kind of down the. Yeah. Oh,
win-win.
Less favorable.
You're tearing the entire house down and rebuilding?
no. It was just the garage.
You're tearing the garage down completely to rebuild.
The initial plan was to leave the garage as it was. It was just to replace the roof to a single pitch instead of the double pitch that it was. But once we were going to tear the roof down, the walls were literally shaking back like this, and it was completely unsafe. So.
Okay, so the garage is in disrepair, the house is not?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, well, I think, you have any other questions for? Okay. Thank you so much. Then we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment now at 6:40. Anyone would like to make a comment?
I would make a comment on that project. I see it every day. It really is a smooth, good-looking setup, and I'm impressed. I'm glad, because that's a neat little building, but it's not used at all.
Just for a if you could, I'm sorry, sir, could you give us your name?
Yeah, sure. My name is John Mura, M-U-R-A, 4160 Whitehall.
Thank you. We like comments like that, that helps. Yes.
I lived there for over 35 years across the road from this house that he's working on. It's always been an eyesore. I don't know if people are familiar with where the house is or.
Yeah, I've seen it pass quite often.
He's doing
I've
it.
seen him working on it.
Yes, he is doing an excellent job. His workers are there every day. Good job. And I'm anxious to see the finished project, and it's gonna look beautiful.
I just want to say, when the house is finished, this is actually the biggest project that I've undertaken myself so far. When it is completed, I was just waiting upon approval for this in order for the garage to get finished. Once the garage is gonna be finished, I have a slab that needs to be poured, and then that should be done in about 2 weeks. Unless you approve it today, but I'll be back December 12th for your guys' approval or denial. But once the house is completed, I did plan to have an open house, and I'll bring a flyer or something up here for you guys, so you guys can see it, and then you can come through, walk through, and see it for yourself.
Sir, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Don Beckwith,
Don Beck.
yeah, 3783 Whitehall Road.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Any other comments?
I just agree with him, watching him. Looking at this house out our upstairs window and watching it become something beautiful, We thought it'd be an eyesore forever, but it's really nice.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Name again, I'm sorry.
Ginger Beckwith.
Okay.
Same address as us.
Gotcha.
Lets me live there.
Sure, it's that way, it's not the other way.
All right, any other comments? All right, I will close the public comment at 6:42, we'll call that. Thank you all. Okay, for the board, is there any comments or any concerns or anything here? I mean, seeing where this sits, it sure seems to fit.
It won't be spot zoning or anything like
No.
that.
It's kind of racing the spots over
Yeah,
there.
it's touching that, so.
Yep, I think you're right on. And for this one is just, we need approval to, just the approval for the zone change, correct?
To send it to,
Yes.
township board.
To recommend approval to the township board.
Do you have anyone who would like to make that motion?
I motioned it, for ZC 22-02 for recommendation to the board to approve the zoning change to R1 from C2.
Support.
All right, we'll take a roll call on this one. Dave, yes. Nick?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And Todd?
Yes.
Goes to the board.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to communications. There are some things in here on the township board meeting minutes. And we have no unfinished business, and then we go to SPR 22-08, a major change.
Solar panels?
Yeah.
Based on the graphic, nice move, instead of 100-foot long.
Yeah.
Put those and stack them. Must see that being behind the building and not out as much where the 100-foot long is going.
They got the buildings that kind of block off a lot of, there's no real. I think there's residential over, our, I guess that would be the west side of the. South side of it.
So the only reason why is because of the footprint or something, that's why it made a major change.
It's moved more than 10 feet.
Even can't be trusted with anything more than.
Is there something we need to add to the list?
Possibly, I thought, for a moment, I thought I might be able to approve it as an other minor change that doesn't substantially alter the site, basic site layout, but I couldn't use that to negate the 10-foot.
I would not mind seeing that added to your list of things that we can review for you so that we can expedite this stuff a little bit. That would certainly, you've already been through once. I think this is a positive thing.
I'll make a motion to approve SPR 22-08 for changes to the solar panel array.
Support.
All right, we will take a roll call. Dave, yes. Nick?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
And Todd?
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, then we have a couple discussion items. First one is on the sand mining, and this is not the first time we've had something along this line.
Steven, talk me through this process. If I own 70 acres of R1 land, I get approved to dig a giant hole in the middle of it, make a 5-acre pond. Then I want my family to move in. How is that? Because it's R1, can that be? What's the minimum acreage?
It'd be minimum 1 acre lots.
Okay.
You'd have land division limitations in the number of divisions you can make without having to do a subdivision or site condo.
Where's the state on sand mining? Because they're pretty much obliterating our ability to. What? It's stalled.
I'm thinking that
Oh,
they're, I haven't heard anything
okay,
updating on there.
okay.
We're talking about the exemptions.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're trying to make it really so local authorities don't really have any say in sand mining, mineral rights or something.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Casey, say more if you would be willing.
The state of Michigan decided that sand is like basically a mineral right and that the property owner should have more leeway in deciding what, if they're mining the sand, and that local authorities wouldn't be able to put, like the state would set requirements that all local authorities had to follow. And apparently it's stalled though. It looked like it had a lot of steam though, so I think it'll come up again eventually.
Is it it's sand mining
Is
because
this-
he wants to remove the sand from the site?
Correct. The quantity as well.
Fine.
Are we talking about sand that would be for resale or a private individual digging a pond and doing something with that sand?
This is a guy that's building a pond. And obviously you
Yeah.
can't stockpile 5 acres of sand. That's a huge, massive amount. He could never keep this on his site and do anything with it, so it has to be removed. It's not really, in this case, it's not really mining. It's not like on Automobile Road where a company bought the land to specifically make a mine.
Excavating, right?
This is just some
And
guy.
there's kind of there's a really kind of a gray area in there, whereas ponds are allowed. And it doesn't specifically say you have to keep it on, but it's always been assumed in the past that you would. I know recently, with a smaller pond on a residential, that was gonna be a feature of this site, allowed it to be removed incidental to the construction, because it's, and there's this big sliding gray area, and especially because there's no limit to the size of a pond. What's a pond versus a lake? I've struggled to find a good
Well,
definition.
there is. It's less than 5 acres.
5
Otherwise
acres.
you have to get a
Because I know
DQ
that's
from it.
with Eagle. I
Yes,
see the 4.9.
everybody does 4.9.
4.9 to me is code for
5 is a,
sand
Bad
mining
thing
without
to s-
getting Eagle involved.
yes, yes.
Is there a regulation on depth? No regulations on depths. And that's another thing, it could be a good idea to look at specific criteria for ponds.
Because there's not much.
Potentially.
There's section.
Yeah.
But honestly, the depth doesn't necessarily matter.
No,
It's the slope that matters,
Slopes
like
that
every,
matter. We have
yeah.
slopes.
and those are already in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want it to have some depth, otherwise it's gonna be disgusting, that's for sure. After like 5 years, it'll be choked off.
Just for conversation, I think the idea of a special use within the R1 district, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it's, you bought the land, as long as you're not being negligent with that land or throwing the land for the people around you, that's yours. I feel- Wondering about an acreage size or the lot size. You know, if you own 7 acres and you put a 4.9 acre pond in the middle of it,
Yeah, you're taking all the usable land.
you know, what is the ratio? Acreage to pond space.
One of those story problems I fell asleep on during math.
I just think that it should be allowed in all the zoning districts. I'm a firm believer in there are tiny parcels in ag and there's huge parcels in R1, and it should be the size of your parcel, and it shouldn't really have anything to do with what zoning district you're in.
Did you do a pond similar to your lot coverage? Would you say you were allowed X lot coverage with a pond? Or, I mean, if you're trying to stay below the 5, most of them are gonna be 4.9, so but how big of a lot do you need to have the 4.9? I guess that's where I would be thinking, because if anyone wants to do bigger than that, then you're gonna have a whole different set of standards that you're gonna be working with, and it's not the Dalton Township Planning Commission in charge of it or approving it.
It probably should be a lot higher because it's a natural feature that, attracts wildlife and stuff. It probably should be a lot bigger than just putting what a building would be or what all your buildings together can be.
Yes, if you want that big of a pond on your property, then so be it. I mean, they like the water.
Yeah.
Really.
This would be a good thing to get what the other areas around us are doing concerning ponds.
Might be.
We could, but most of them are terrible. Most of them are really, really restrictive. Like, don't even try to dig a sandbox for your kid in the backyard in Fruitland Township.
Skip all that.
So just don't go to Fruitland Township, we already know it's bad.
But then Cortland Township in Kent County has actually a really good, they call it artificial water bodies,
Oh,
where it's laid out, so many cubic yards being moved, so much acreage in a pond is this level of approval versus this level of approval. And that way the rules are very well defined.
I'd be hesitant to get into cubic feet because who's gonna regulate that? You're not gonna go out there and be like, how many buckets did you take out of the pond? So that's just kind of putting something in but yeah, I acreage is very easy to tell.
Would that be something we could make it as an administrative approval if we gave it within, you don't have to have the board approval, there'd be ones that you could approve? Like up to a certain. At 4.9 to me sounds like that's where everyone's gonna land.
No, that's huge.
If they can't.
So that's hard. That's super hard.
It's a monster pond.
That's
I'm just saying, if you say you're allowed up to, I don't think too many people are gonna take a 4.9.
Yeah, we would just have to, so somewhere on the
Yeah.
parcel, you'd have to make sure there's at least one buildable lot. We don't wanna make any parcels that are strange or weird or anything. So as long as they have
Yeah,
like
something where it's.
one buildable lot around that's like,
Yeah, you know, Jesse wrote me a comment about it. Earlier, he said, sand mining in R1 districts, I think that's okay. I think it would be fine to allow it in any district. There's some large parcels in the various districts that apply to at some point in the future, as long as some large parcels in the as long as it's a special land use, we can authorize it as we see fit. I do think that along with this discussion, there should be a clear division of what a mine is and is not. We spoke about this briefly a couple months ago, he and I did. And my feeling is there should be clarity on that in order to avoid someone digging a pond, for example, that could take years to remove a hill, that could be the same thing. I think the simplest thing is that the material being removed from a site constitutes a mine. We could establish a quantity if we wanted to say more than 1,000 cubic yards, for example, and a time frame for digging a pond or removing a hill and exporting the soil, maybe 30 days. So some sort of threshold, quantity, size, time limit. I think time would be especially important as well. Because there's that in determining, is it a mining operation? How long is it going to go on for?
So he's saying if you dig a pond and you stockpile your sand, you should be able to have a window of time that sand should be moved. If you're calling it a mine.
In order for it not to be a mine, there's,
Right.
if you're,
Okay.
like size wise, like if you're digging up maybe a 1/4 acre pond and you don't, you need to get rid of some of it. So there are people that have, done a residential parking space and they've had to remove a couple truckloads of dirt to remove a hill.
That's not sand mining.
Not exactly sand mining, because they're not.
So under 5 acres constitutes something other than a mine, like a pond? Is that where the threshold is?
Well, I think under 5 acres is, at 4.9 is still gonna take a while to get everything out. And that would be a
Yeah.
long time.
long process, and it'll beat up the roads too.
That's another
And that's
can of worms.
a,
So when you're looking at an R1 sand mine,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's in the, there's special uses, we have the requirements for road bonds. And also reestablishing the natural landscape. So, when you're done removing everything, digging the pond, you go in and spread topsoil and reestablish it. And there's a plan for reclamation. So you're not just leaving a hole.
So buildable lot would be something to have in there, and then the amount removed and a time frame. That's only the 3 things to include?
As long as we don't get too specific with the amount removed,
Yeah.
because it depends on the depth, it depends on.
Yeah. And I'm
So-
not gonna go out and measure that.
I find the road thing interesting because so currently, correct me if I'm wrong, we have absolutely no say in logging companies, right? They can come and tear apart the roads and then just leave into the night.
I don't believe we do.
But we can tell when you're digging a pond, so the company you hire has to get a road bond, even though across the street is a logging company who doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah. And I know there are state laws that regulate that.
The logging companies or the
Any commercial trucks,
Okay.
I believe.
like weight
That's what
restrictions
explained
and
to me.
such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like kind of a break it, you fix it
Yeah.
kind of law.
I like that. That should be the law. If you break it, you fix it.
I just don't wanna pigeonhole one specific industry into, you have to fix the roads, but garbage companies don't, and logging companies don't, and, you know, whatever, but, and like, we have one 24-hour sand mine, they don't have to do anything, but people digging a household pond do have to do something, so I just wanna be careful there and think about what we're doing with that.
That's a good push.
Should we table this?
For
Is
more
it-
discussion.
It's just discussion
Yeah,
anyway.
it'd be good to further
Yeah.
discuss this and.
So if you get that, what was the term that what did they call it, the one in Kent County? What did they call their ponds?
Portland Township, artificial water bodies.
Yeah.
I think that includes, that would include damming up streams or anything.
Trees for
Trees.
removal of trees for uses subject to site plan review. Property discussed here is the old bank, right on M120 there.
By Farmer Home.
And this has been a topic of conversation in the township for the entire 20 years I've lived here. Because, yes, trees, it gets ugly, because obviously if someone buys a parcel adjacent to you and clears all the land, they're well within their rights as a property owner, but as an adjacent neighbor, you're mad now because all of your screening and buffering is gone. So this has been ugly for many, many years.
And in residential uses, there's really nothing that I'm aware of that would limit that, but
Right.
once it's a commercial use, then it's subject to site plan review, and there's requirements for keeping vegetation and buffering.
In your staff thing though, there is a very vague thing in there insofar as practical, so, or practical or whatever, however you say that word. So that's pretty vague. The trees, like you're saying, are hindering visibility. It's not very practical for the business owner to have hidden business.
Yeah, I think that's, the way it's worded makes me think that that's something that, when it's a commercial use, that's something that the planning commission needs to decide.
Well, and typically when you buy your lot,
Okay to remove.
you can clear it first before you have to come to us with a site plan. Okay.
That's one of those great,
Okay, it's been done.
I like it when people don't do that, but
Yeah.
people do that, and that's a reality.
Yeah.
And it's not something I'm going to go out and enforce, because it's something that I'm not gonna make them replant a bunch of trees when they're gonna come to you anyway and say, these are all the trees I've cleared, and you'll approve it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just,
Well, because not in our township, but Bayer Crop Science. They were gonna build that battery plant next door and clear cut that whole parcel, and then it fell through, and now it's just growing scrub. Oops. They didn't have a site plan or anything, because they didn't even have any plans at all.
This PNC Bank location, to me, I have no problem with them tearing down those yard oaks. I mean, they're not ornamental trees there.
Looks neglected right now. Just because I feel like the overgrowth and the amount of
It
trees.
is,
there's
yeah,
neglected.
it's still shoddy. Well, that's strong, but they're indigenous oaks and whatnot. You know, we live in a forest. I get that. I live in one.
So the question, does
Particularly
removal of does removing all of the trees in the front yard of a commercial lot constitute a substantial alteration to the appearance or character?
There are 21 trees.
yeah, and I'll read Jesse wrote a comment to me about it as well. He said, I think the ordinance is pretty clear about minimizing tree removal. Yes, I understand if they need to build a parking lot, For example, then yes, remove the trees as needed. Keep whatever you can on an island or a green area, for example. On the second part, I would say yes, this does constitute a substantial alteration.
And again, it's not saying you can't come with your plan and say, this is my plan to remove those, but with approval for taking them out, rather than just going in and clear cutting and then coming back later. So I guess it isn't bad the way it's written now, to say, but
What is the
how would you
SPR?
enforce it?
What financial obligations do they have for an SPR to come through and ask for trees to be removed?
It's $250.
They pay $250 to come get a blessing to get trees removed from your lot. And you gotta go pay to get your trees removed.
Can I ask a question? How many of you paid attention to how many trees DTE is removing for their building specifically? Like, does anybody know the exact acreage? No, because you guys never, so it says like we approve it on a site plan, but I can tell you when we came for the campground in 2008, no one asked us anything about our tree clearing plan at all, so, I mean.
DTE, they put it on there.
Right, but it's,
Plan what
some
remains
people
and what
don't
doesn't.
though, when we get those hand-drawn site plans, we don't even know what they're actually doing.
If you go by where they're doing, like the DT as an example, there's orange flags all along the front of the property. And at first I thought it's all along the property. I don't know if that is the actual boundary that they're working with or something, but it went for, it looks like basically the dimension of the road facing the lot going back in. So. What's that? Oh, okay, that's what it looked like, that's what I thought, that was, to me, what I was assuming that was either like tree removal or something, it had to be something with the trees, because there was enough of them there. Usually they just spray them and you know which ones are taken out, but. Yep.
I would support if we want to adjust buffering and things in the ordinance, but I'm not really in support of having people come to us about their trees. It's none of my business. If I didn't want my neighbor to remove the trees, I would buy the land when it came up for sale, and if I don't, then there's not a lot you can do.
There you go.
We just can't. I don't want to get into landscaping and trees and people won't buy their property and they should be able to do what they want.
I agree, there's a lot of can of worms that could be diseased. They could be the post-war red pines that are all,
Yeah.
and those are at their life expectancy.
Yes, they are.
I've got acres of them. They should, a lot of them should come down, but anyway, there's a lot of that sort of thing in our township.
And for like a commercial lot, they should make whatever decisions are necessary for their business without us having that approved or
Yeah.
a bunch of unnecessary red tape.
Because you know what trees bring? They bring leaves. And when you're busy as go find a plumber or an electrician and ask if he has time to clean up his leaves in his yard. He doesn't even have time to do his actual job. So I don't think we should force people to be keeping trees if they're a nuisance to them.
Well, I imagine they'll probably replace with something that looks nice or whatever, so and I don't want to dictate to that to them either, because
Right.
it's none of my business really. Really is, as a business owner, if you want people to come, you probably make it look clean and nice. If it looks kind of run down and stuff, people probably ain't gonna come, so.
But if we are worried about buffering, then I suppose we could look at that. If how close can somebody,
It's something where it's not providing screening to an adjacent residential use. But it's still removing, one or two trees.
but what if it is? Say I buy that parcel across the street
Fine.
and I want to clear it. What is the buffering to each property line right now? Do you have to leave a landscape? Because
No,
in
there's-
commercial, you have to leave 50 feet, don't you, from natural area
I think that's a discretion that it's just natural, like a natural wooded buffer.
Right.
50 feet is kind of the rule of thumb for no additional screening. Create the open spaces in the winter and
Okay.
everything.
In
But
additional
if
screening.
it were a tight space, you could put up a 6-foot privacy fence or a row of hedges and something and reduce that screening.
Okay,
Because I just think about this again, something I thought about the other day, 21 trees. Now, is this a tree? Are they removing, or is this,
so I think they're huge.
I know, but what justifies
Oh,
the
yeah.
trees? Like, if they're removing just some, little things, I mean, it's whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
Essentially, let's get in trouble with the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to approve something that
Right.
How would you like us,
is kind of,
what would be the best help for you in this?
so my main question is this something that even needs site plan review?
Right, because it says, section 17.6E states a standard of a site plan approval. Well, this guy, we're not even approving a site plan, he's not doing anything, correct? So really, there's nowhere in the ordinance that would tell him he can't do what he wants to do because he's not seeking site plan approval.
Okay, so removal of trees on a commercial lot wouldn't trigger site plan review. Is that kind of the general consensus?
You just, imagine he's looking at doing a site plan review, that's why he's worried about the tree. Because he wants to remove the trees, he's here looking to do a site plan review. Correct?
He's just trying to beautify the lot so he can sell what he has there. And he is seeking permission, knowing that he doesn't want to get himself in trouble for altering a lot.
Yeah.
Is that truly part of our role, is to regulate the altering of our community?
This is the can of worms that you opened up.
I didn't open anything.
Cracking bottles.
We need you to speak, John.
No.
Please do.
This talks about removing all trees in the front yard of a commercial lot constitute a substantial alteration to appearance or character. Appearance or character never shows up in our ordinances, does it? It sounds good.
Section 17.
And maybe it'll help the north side bar was behind that bank. And talk about no visibility. You need a
That's
map
in
to
site plan
find
review,
that.
so if we're not talking about a site plan review, then
17.6E is where it references landscaping.
only when we're looking at a site plan review.
Yeah.
So if we're not looking at a site plan review, then I'm not sure it's our business.
I'm disappointed that that bank closed. That's my bank.
Then we would have to look at it, yeah, that's part of our steps of looking at it.
I can't help but think about hobos and there's a hobo's tavern or whatever. And it's in the giant sand hill that went up in the middle of this thing, and I'm going, yeah, it makes sense to me, and is it, obviously, we're not building sand hills, but that's an alteration of the, what did you say, that was the, not
Appearance or character.
Yeah. That substantially altered that appearance and character of that space.
Hobos, is that a sand hill?
They created
In between the two buildings, yeah, like.
they created a berm, like it's there to protect, it's literally a sound, it's dense. It
Okay.
creates more of the sound more than a visual, because it is right along Whitehall Road. So I don't know how, if you get into this, what's the difference between a berm and a hill or any of this stuff? I'm like,
Sand storage.
what the,
I mean, honestly, when you read 4.37A, you just can't even believe how strict that is. It tells you cannot remove any vegetation or make alterations to your topography unless it's necessary to develop your site. So if you want to go out in your backyard and you want to put a berm in or whatever, or you want to do anything, you're technically not allowed to because you're not developing your site. You're just altering your site.
Reasonably.
Oh,
How do you measure that one?
it also said practical, so.
Let's go back to North Lake.
what was that term they used? Unduly. Unduly obscured. I unduly object.
4.37A, yeah. So I would argue that everything I'm doing is reasonably necessary.
That's kind of my thought as well, is if you're, building a berm or a, retaining wall, you're leveling the land so you can use it, and it's reasonable to be able to use it.
I'd say it's reasonable then that he needs to remove these trees.
I agree with this one.
Not everybody's reasonable in this day and age though, so that's a dangerous word there too, unduly reasonable.
Clearing land, though, that's kind of a big deal.
So if you're a real estate person and you're looking at purchasing a property to sell it, you're not going to be the one that comes in with the site plan, but you would be the person who is trying to prepare the lot for resale. So would you just be able to go in and if he was doing it that way, we wouldn't even know it, right?
Right, if it's reasonably necessary, then you could.
And based on what he's, as a bank, I'm sure trees, provide a peaceful environment or whatever, but if you're the person who wants to do additional parking, you gotta do anything else, you're gonna put up picnic tables or something out there, you might not want the trees out there. I mean, you're getting to the point of some sort of a site plan, but you're not at the point where the property's even been sold to the person with the end use in mind, yeah. So I don't know how you dictate somebody, you can't cut down trees on your property. I think it goes back to that again, where how do you tell somebody, nope, we need beautification, or what was the words, the character and.
My concern is if that, if there was a site that was approved, where it was a condition that they kept those trees.
Oh, I see what, so.
Casey said it's been beat up since 2008.
Those trees were on their site plan originally.
I can understand.
So the way it's worded is basically you can't do anything on a commercial lot unless it's approved through plan review.
I can see we're enforcing that really well. I took out a tree this summer because it was dead. Should I have come here and sought approval for it? It was brown.
Substantial.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be on our, next time we submit a site plan, that tree will be removed.
You're getting 2 demerits for that.
I didn't know. It seemed reasonably necessary, so I just did it.
Is a wording of, what the heck was it, Justine got me. Something about with the idea of buffering, so as to not disrupt the buffering between neighboring properties, or I don't know. I feel like we're
Neighboring residential.
Yeah.
I don't care about commercial on the other side.
Yes, the required buffering is just between adjacent residential uses.
Are there a lot of instances where people are required to keep trees, like as a condition of approval? Well, I guess we.
Yeah. We did the marijuana one. We told them they had to put a privacy fence if they didn't have trees.
Yeah. We had at one time, conditions of approval for site plans was that they needed to add trees to certain things. And then you get into this, well, there's already 1,106 trees on the lot. Why do we need more trees?
They're not in the right spot.
Or then we said, well, what's a tree? Then we got into that same thing, what's a tree? Well, it needs to be at least, it's like, then it goes the wrong direction, right?
Yes. Because you can't expect somebody's gonna purchase a very, very expensive tree. Like a maple tree this big is like $200. And like, it's gonna get big in like 25 or 30 years, but you can't, and there's no way you need a tree spade, a giant tree that's unreasonable for us to ever ask that of anyone. So I'm glad we've moved away from requiring people to plant trees.
Hey, we're looking for a motion to adjourn?
Is this your last meeting?
It is.
I was gonna tell you about this time in high school. Is there anything else you need on? You feel that's what you're looking for, or do you want?
I still wouldn't feel comfortable approving administratively, just the way the ordinance is worded. I think if we were to add some allowances for moving trees that don't provide buffering, I think that would be ideal.
Okay.
Or diseased, and diseased.
Yeah.
You have to have a certified arborist to say they're diseased. And I don't wanna open that can of worms either. We just got rid of the conservation getting involved in solar panels.
You
And really-
actually do cut oak trees down. Last year at least. I forget the name of the disease, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't wanna do it over the winter if they're diseased. So if he never would have asked you, you never would have done anything though. You didn't realize that. You're gonna drive down M120 and be like, where'd those trees go? You wouldn't have even noticed.
But he's done that before where he didn't ask, so
Oh,
then I had to do something.
gotcha. It's a little gun shy now. Well, then I guess we'll have to add a little bit in the ordinance, but.
You can add that to the next
Yeah,
meeting.
on the-
Yeah.
Just a change just to look at.
Well, I will entertain, if you would like to, sir, on your last meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I would support that if you make your motion.
I'll make a motion to
I
adjourn.
will support that. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Why is this your last meeting?
I'm gonna jump on the ZBA, just need to find a better balance in my life.
Those
When you see 4 or 5 boards and your wife is like, what are you doing tonight?